Hi everyone, my name is Whitney Bausman, and I am the author of Partly Sunny, an honest and humorous look at the first weeks of bringing home a newborn. This week, I am back with another chapter of our read aloud, and why I am doing this right here, absolutely free, is because I know how impossible it can be when you are a new mom to find the time to sit down and read a book. I think my honesty and my humor is important, and I want to get it out there to the people who need it most. If this is your first time here, I hope that you will hop back in our Partly Sunny playlist and start with us from the beginning. And for those of you who have been here from the beginning, we are gonna pick right up where we left off last time, and that is with chapter 3. Chapter 3, Exhaustion Beyond Exhaustion. Sleep has always been my friend. Okay, maybe my best friend. Unlike my hubby, I am a napper, and I can fall asleep just about anywhere, at any time, wearing anything. Or at least I was in the BC era, before Clark. Prior to parenthood, if Jonathan would travel on a work-related trip, my idea of a bangin' evening was splurging on a pint of ice cream and a massive bowl of popcorn in front of the TV before hitting the pillow at like 9. I was never a night owl, nor was I an early bird. I was more like a 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. kind of girl, followed by, what else? A nap. I knew that having children meant sacrificing sleep. Remember my crazy sisters and their 600 children? I saw them looking a little haggard each time a wee one was born, and I heard them snicker if I complained of being tired myself. I surface level knew that babies were time-consuming and demanding at all hours of the day. The moment I became a mom, however, is the moment I knew exhaustion. I hadn't been sleeping well for weeks because of being the hump belly of Notre Dame. Plus, I had just performed the workout of my life during labor and delivery. And I now had to consider a precious and helpless little one who depended heavily on me. As the first moments rolled into the first hours, which then rolled into the first days and weeks of Clark, I understood the snickers of my sisters. I also understood why not only once, but twice, my brother-in-law Joe cross-dressed his male and female twins in their first days of life. The best part of it all? He probably wouldn't even have noticed, and had to be told by my sister Alicia that Xander wasn't exactly a cute little sister, nor was Julia, mommy's handsome guy. I already think that all of you out there expecting or currently parenting multiples are saints, but those of you with opposite-sex babies, having to put effort into thinking about 2 completely separate wardrobes has to extra suck. I feel you, Joe. Just like you were in those early baby days, I was tired. Shortly after I delivered Clark, I received a brief window of alone time. While he was being bathed for the first time, Jonathan went along to document the event behind a camera. One would think that I used this time to allow my totally wrecked and completely spent body a chance to ask itself, what the hell, and get some sleep, right? Hardly. Endorphins are like the upper of all uppers. I tried to process what had just happened and convince myself to rest, but my mind raced at 100 miles a minute. As became the trend of my hospital stay and the weeks to follow, the moment I finally settled down and began to drift off was the same moment that Daddy was wheeling Clark back into my room. Hello, boys. It was around this time that we attempted to get Clark, who hadn't really fed yet, to figure out what to do with a boob. Our first encounters with breastfeeding were hardly successful, as Clark preferred at that point to snooze. The one time when being awake would have been desired over sleeping. Because I really wanted to breastfeed and we were working with a less than willing participant, we were introduced to what would soon become my mortal enemy, the breast pump. Listening to instructions on how to operate an unfamiliar device comprised of lots of separate, tiny pieces that require assembly, disassembly, and washing with every use at approximately 2 a.m. after having recently squeezed a melon from your insides is a little bit like trying to interpret a foreign film without subtitles. I saw the nurse's mouth moving. My ears heard words. My brain, however, not so much. For the next hour or so, Jonathan and I continued feeding attempts and got tangled up in tubes and incorrectly placed pump parts. I can only imagine how hopeless and utterly hilarious we had to have looked. When we decided that it was time to call it a night, We laid our burrito belly up in his bassinet. Jonathan curled up on the ultra deluxe pull-out bed next to me. And I attempted to find a position that was tolerable enough not to bring discomfort to any of the 95 parts of my body that were sore. And then we all slept soundly for 3 hours until Clark had to eat again. Or not. Just as one cannot know exhaustion until he or she becomes a parent, one cannot know worry either. I don't mean this as a cut at men in any way, but I think that this is especially true of moms. Genetically speaking, I truly believe women are wired to fret over the welfare of their children. It's in our bones, so to say. My husband is seriously like the champion dad of dads. I don't think I changed a single diaper for either of my babes in the hospital. He's a freaking kid magnet whom all of my nieces and nephews prefer over me. And unlike most men who need time to bond with their babies and prefer the later stages of parenting, this guy was in it from day one. Despite his proclivity for all things baby, I have lost far more sleep than Jonathan has in the years since welcoming our children into the world, simply because I worry about them and I hear every single noise that they mutter in their sleep. The first night in the hospital, if any part of Clark moved a fragment of a centimeter, I knew it. I quickly learned that even as they slumber, babies aren't quiet. They rustle a lot, they grunt, and weirdly, they sneeze. I remember actually calling my nurse in the wee hours of the morning because Clark sneezed so often that I wondered if it was possible that he had somehow fallen ill already. After convincing myself that if I ever wanted to sleep again, I was going to have to drown out those sounds and trust that staring at Clark wasn't going to keep him breathing, I may have gotten a solid 10 minutes of shut-eye before it was time for one of the infrequent, yet somehow always inconveniently timed medical interruptions. And so began the new normal of never really reaching a point of deep sleep and having to achieve it instead in all too short bursts. Not exactly restful or rejuvenating for someone who loves sleep so very much. Whether it was my peanut crying for his needs to be met, which felt like all the time, or the constant presence of visitors wanting to get their hands on some bitty baby, there were very few opportunities for anything resembling sleep in the hospital. Once we got home, though, Jonathan, Clark, and I slept like bosses. Just kidding. Coming home from the hospital was both a stress-relieving and stress-inducing experience. While we were super ready to be in our own home with our own stuff, there was also this nagging sense of anxiety we carried with us through the doors. It was like, what do we do now? Seriously, I have got to be one of the planniest planners that has ever graced God's green earth. Ladies, has your man ever surprised you by showing up with takeout that he picked up on his way home from work? You know, a cute and thoughtful gesture intended to keep you from having to slave away in the kitchen for an evening? True story, right hand of the Bible. Last night my hubby comes walking through the door with a pizza box in his hand, and while I should have thought something resembling, "Aw, that's so sweet of you," my thoughts were a heck of a lot closer to, and what are we gonna do with that tonight? Not in my plan. I plan things like nobody else. I plan things that don't require planning. It's probably diagnosable, but I thrive on predictability and routine. Want to know what the furthest thing from a predictable routine is? Life with a newborn. The first night home from the hospital with Clark, I was tired, and I thought for sure that I would be able to get a few hours of sleep, even if they were staggered. I was tired enough, in fact, that I thought I might be able to tune out Clark's little sounds, sneezes and all. Sneezing, however, wasn't the bodily function that caused an issue that first night at home. What was the culprit, you may be asking? Hiccups. If hiccuping was a paid occupation, both of my babies would have been millionaires within the first month of their lives. Initially, those little squeaks are oh so cute and they make you just want to squeeze your tiny smushy little babe. But believe me, guys, they're not so adorable at 3 a.m. when they cause your wee one to spit up and choke, send you into a full-blown hormonal freakout, and result in you calling your sister so that together, she and your deliriously exhausted husband can convince you to step down off the ledge. Yep, that happened. In a display of sisterly love, Ash had encouraged me to call her at any time after coming home should I need anything. Bet she didn't expect me to take her up on that offer so soon. I think we made it a whole 9 hours from the time we crossed our threshold until I placed my panicked SOS. Just as finally falling asleep when it was time to wake up for one reason or another became the trend of my life early on, requiring the completion of a multi-step process in order to achieve any sort of slumber became Clark's. From the beginning, I suspected that Clark was going to be somewhat of a high-maintenance infant, especially when it came to falling asleep. Clark may have been a fairly solid snoozer once he fell asleep, and did gift Jonathan and I immensely with sleeping through the night way earlier than his sister, but the getting to sleep part was the culprit with this boy. He was never the type of baby capable of putting himself to sleep, even with a full belly. Unless we wanted to listen to the incessant cries of our guy when he was tired, Jonathan and I were required to provide lots of rocking, bouncing, snuggling, swaddling, pacifying, and shushing. When the vibrating feature on Clark's bassinet died one evening, we even mastered the art of rocking that sucker with our feet while semi-sleeping. To this day, nap time and bedtime with Clark, although super endearing, nearly necessitate the use of an instruction manual. My firstborn is far from simple, to say the least. He requires dimmed lighting, a noise machine, his 2 current favorite stuffed animals, a pile of security blankets, 2 stories, a prayer, a specific song, a kiss on the lips, and a kiss blown from the door, along with the reminder that no smoke and no dragons are going to enter his room at night and that his alarm clock will light up at 7:00, aka 7 a.m. I'm picking on my bud here a little bit, but this is all true. Would you like to know what else is true? I told you I'd be honest, so honest I'll be. Today is not an A+ day in the momming world. As I type this, I am literally sitting here with a sore throat from yelling at Clark just minutes ago as he fought and fought and fought me to go down for a nap. I guess not much has changed with this kiddo in the high maintenance department. Most nights in the beginning, it felt like the amount of time it took just to settle Clark and convince him to sleep anywhere other than our arms far surpassed the amount of time he or we actually slept. Every night felt like a never-ending cycle of sleeplessness that just spilled over into an exhausting day. If you're pregnant or are a new parent, I'm willing to bet money that you've heard the following tip many times before. Sleep when baby sleeps. While I did find this advice to be beneficial to a degree, I also found it annoying and mostly unhelpful for a variety of reasons revolving around 4 basic principles: cooking, cleaning, grooming, and feeding. Let's investigate these ideas together. Number 1, cooking. Folks will tell you that cooking can be removed from the to-do list getting in the way of rest for new parents because loved ones will bring mass amounts of food. Yes, if you are blessed with super supportive and want to lighten your load friends and family members like Jonathan and I are, they will. It's true that you may find yourself freed from the chore of planning and preparing meals initially. Why is this in any way a problem? And how might it limit your ability to sleep during the day, you may be asking? Well, most of the time food drop-off comes with a visit. And if you're a tad OCD like I am, you and your house may not want to look like utter crap when someone who has gotten a whole lot more sleep than you in recent days shows up on your doorstep with bright eyes, a mammoth lasagna, and a mission to snuggle a baby. This leads us to concepts 2, 3, and 4. 2, cleaning. Housework can wait. I get this and I support it wholeheartedly. Most of the time, however, even a brand new, exhausted, and struggling mom finds the need to keep her nest tidy to an extent. This might not be as true if said mama is living in complete isolation, but isolation when a wee one is welcomed is seldom the case. Babies equals visitors. Hey guys, if you're ever coming over for a visit and you tell me you don't care what state my house is in, please know that I believe you and I appreciate what you've said, but quite frankly, it doesn't matter that you don't care. I care. It's just in my DNA. Number 3, grooming. I'm sure that there are people out there who leave the hospital after giving birth feeling like $1,000,000, but guess who didn't? Me. Regardless of how much weight you do or don't gain during pregnancy, it takes a while for your body to bounce back. Most post-baby bodies look kind of like half pregnant, but whole tired, swollen, uncomfortable forms of the woman affected prior to gestation. Because of this, it becomes necessary for us lady folk to highlight the good things we have going for us instead of accentuating the not so good. Especially when we've got some stranger from church who could potentially look all sorts of put together, bringing us a pot roast in a few short hours. How do we achieve this? Here are some ideas, ordered by the amount of effort required on the part of the new mom from least effort to most effort. Dressing oneself in a loose-fitting yet flattering outfit that is actually chosen from a drawer. You heard me, girls. The floor, the hamper, and/or the clothing you slept in last night are not options. Showering oneself daily. Oh yes, mommies-to-be. Even bathing once a day will require you to muster energy from the depths of your core. It's going to happen. I promise. Primping oneself in any way, shape, or form. This includes the use of any hair product, the application of makeup to any degree, or putting on any piece of jewelry. Accentuating the not so good is easy. Sweatpants for days, shower when smelly, and, in the words of Sweet Brown, ain't nobody got time for earrings. Highlighting the good, however, is loads more challenging, and not always feasible if we sleep when baby sleeps. Number 4, feeding. Babies sleep a lot, right? Hence folks telling us to sleep when baby sleeps in the first place. My argument on this one, however, is that babies sleeping often and sleeping a lot aren't really one and the same. In the next chapter, you're going to learn enough about my boobs and their mission to breastfeed enough to last you a lifetime. For a new mom to keep her new baby thriving, baby's gotta eat. Like all the time. In the beginning especially, just about the time you've wrapped up one round of feeding, changed the inevitable 3 poopy diapers, and gotten baby down for a nap, it's time to start it all again. You know who else needs nutrition? Oh right, you. After all, the casseroles are piling up in the fridge and someone has to eat them, right? Even without breastfeeding, a parent needs to eat just to have the energy to make it through the day. With lactation, however, we're talking crazy caloric needs. More so than you even needed to grow the baby in the first place. Being a parent often means putting one's own needs in the back seat in order to meet the demands of our dependent infants, toddlers, and children. I can't even tell you how many times I've looked at the clock since my kids have arrived and thought to myself, did I drink anything today? Did I eat lunch? Bottom line, keeping your newborn fed takes so much time. And making sure your own needs are met on top of that, you get the picture. You see, there's lots more to the story than sleep when baby sleeps. If it was that simple, I think there'd be far fewer parents, moms and dads alike, looking so exhausted beyond exhausted those first days and weeks of parenthood. It's enough of a problem just to find the time to nap when life's demands, be it baby or otherwise, are shouting your name. And if and when those sacred moments are found and utilized for rest, convincing a hormonal, run-ragged mind to shut down, not always the simplest of tasks. If you were between the ages of 2 and 10 in 1992, like I was, you will most likely recall the show Lamb Chops Play Along. If you've ever seen it, you know the godforsaken song for which it is known, and will now have stuck in your head for approximately ever, the song that doesn't end. The song that doesn't end is essentially the same phrase repeated over and over and over and over again in a never-ending loop. Friends, this is how parenthood often feels in the beginning. Feed baby, change diaper, pray that everyone gets a little bit of sleep, repeat, 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 repeat. The first days at home with Clark were oh so tiring and oh so hard. I remember feeling stuck in the depleting, cyclical song that didn't end in the beginning. So much so that I was actually jealous of my husband for being able to return to work and escape the monotony and fatigue. Getting to leave the house without a baby to talk to other adults, without having to worry whether or not a certain dependent little nugget was hungry or tired or wet, all while sipping a cup of hot coffee. Yeah, man, I longed for it. Instead, I was cooped up at home with a baby who couldn't communicate and was always thinking about him and his needs, all while sipping on a way cold, brewed 5 hours ago cup of coffee. When you become a parent, gone are the days of fresh coffee or hot anything. Truth. All of this is an exaggeration, of course. Jonathan is a hard worker with an important job as a network engineer that demands a lot of him. He may be able to sit at a desk or in a meeting the majority of a typical day, but it's not like he was twiddling his thumbs while I struggled at home. Lots of people depend on the work he does, or has done, to function in their day-to-day roles. When you're in the thick of the newborn fog, however, and you're wanting nothing more than a night of old-school, quality, uninterrupted sleep, or maybe even like a measly hour of daylight time to do whatever the heck you want to do without consideration for anyone else, it's easy to slip into feelings of envy and resentment that can drive a wedge between partners who are actually at a point of needing one another more than ever before. There's really no way around the weariness that accompanies bringing home a newborn. Infants have to learn everything, including how to establish eating and sleeping patterns. All of this, as any parent knows, takes time and patience and monumental sacrifices in the slumber department for mom and dad. Bypassing or ignoring the exhaustion? Impossible. Managing and surviving it, however? Yep, sure can. For starters, in spite of and in response to those feelings of resentment for your spouse or your other that will surface, you've got to be real with one another. You've got to communicate openly and honestly, even when your thoughts are anything but kosher, pretty, or rational. Choose to rely on your partner or whoever your closest support person is, like you never have before. If you're like Jonathan and I, we tend to be fortunate in that when one of us is having a moment or reaching the end of our individual rope, the other is able to maintain composure and see the situation from a different, more sensible vantage point. By allowing myself to break in front of my husband time and time again in the newborn days and admit to him that I needed help, I was able to get through some of the hard stuff more intact than I would have otherwise. For those of you who are about to embark on the adventure of parenthood, the fatigue that awaits you, truthfully, is far beyond anything you can imagine. It's going to be so real. As I've said before and will say again, however, it's far from the entire story. For as tired as I was in becoming a new mother, I was also never more in love. It took a few weeks, I won't lie, to adjust myself to this new normal and the demands that it entailed. But when the time rolled around for me to go back to work, guess who wasn't jealous of Jonathan anymore? In fact, I was anything but. As it turns out, not one cell of my being was ready for that day, and oh, how absolutely devastated and heartbroken I was. I would have given just about anything for more time with my son, even the monotonous, draining, and opposite of glamorous parts. So much so that I fruitlessly tried to bargain with HR in order to make some sort of deal and buy myself a few more weeks. A lack of sleep has a way of making difficult things more difficult and ugly things more ugly. But the beauty in what I was doing as a new mom was always there. It just took me a little while to see it through the fog. I think I need a nap. With that, we have reached the end of chapter 3 of Partly Sunny, and wow, that was a good one. This is a book that I wrote several years ago at this point, and so my kids are now beyond even the napping stage that I was talking about in here, but I still, all these years later, remember how truly tired I was and how I had never really experienced true fatigue and true exhaustion before becoming a parent. To those of you out there who are new parents and are currently living this reality, I say to you, find the beauty and treasure the things that are good. The exhaustion and the fatigue that come with being a new mom or a new dad are not things that you can wish or will away, unfortunately. They're just a reality of the experience, but they're only one part of it. Be real with yourself. Be real with your partner. Allow yourself grace and allow yourself to feel what you feel. The fatigue of new parenthood is so real, but fortunately, it is only a part of the bigger and more beautiful picture. Thank you so much for being here this week, and I can't wait to see you again soon for Chapter 4.